The future doesn't belong to the busiest leader. It belongs to the one who can see it first. Welcome to The Vision Architect, a podcast how bold visions are created, communicated, and turned into reality. I'm your host, Simon Vetter. Welcome to the Vision Architect podcast. I'm super excited to talk to Bruce Cryer today. He is an expert on heart coherence, on creativity and well-being. We met many years ago when he was the CEO of HeartMath, and he developed this concept of heart coherence. We'll talk more about that. He's also adjunct faculty at Stanford, teaching courses around creativity and performance. And he loves to sing and he loves to dance, and that's actually how he started his career. So welcome, Bruce. Great to have you.
Great to see you again, Simon. This is a treat.
Yes. Let's start with heart coherence. I saw you speak probably 20 years ago at one of the leadership conferences where you talked about the heart, the importance of the heart in leadership. Can you describe what heart coherence is?
Sure. So, this organization you've referred to called the HeartMath Institute, which started almost 35 years ago now, and I was there at the beginning and later CEO. We started with the premise back in 1990 and 91 that the West had missed the boat on what the heart actually was, that we had concluded, or at least some scientists had concluded during the time of industrialization and industrial revolution, that the heart was an amazing, but that was about it. And yet every religion, every spiritual system, every parent reveres the heart. You tell your kid, go just play with your heart, honey, you'll be fine. Just sing with your heart, just speak from your heart. Did we all mean just play with your pump? Just sing with your pump? No, we meant something deeper than that. So we believe there was something really missing in our especially in the West, in our thinking about the importance of the heart, and that in fact the heart was an intelligence system, not just a pump. And so we began our journey to understand more. We believe we could prove this medically through mainstream Western science. And before long, we realized that our emotional state and how our heart beats are absolutely linked together. And a simple visual on this, and you remember when I used to do the demos back in the day, if you're feeling frustrated about anything, money, time, the boss, anything, the spouse, the in-laws, whatever it may be, that feeling of frustration causes the pattern of how our heart is beating to look chaotic. It looks kind of like an earthquake. If you can visualize, us Californians we know what that kind of looks like on a chart. On the other hand, when you're feeling love or peaceful or compassionate, any of those things, that creates this beautiful sine wave pattern in how our heart is beating. Now, which do you want, chaos or coherence? And so we discovered that this calling it coherence matched how physics looks at this, that in fact, when the heart is beating in a very smooth, what they would call a coherent rhythm, that's really efficient, kind of like a laser is a super efficient form of light. You can take something that functions like a laser and repair a retina with it. You can't take an LED bulb in your ceiling and repair any retinas. So there's something about lasers that's super focused and super efficient. So we said, actually, humans are capable of a similar concept. Normally, we're doing okay, and we can function, we can speak, we can do our job. But there's a whole nother level of efficiency, coherence, clarity that's possible that has to do with the heart. We began to explore that. The term heart coherence emerged from that. Some of your listeners, I'm sure, know the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He has gotten in deeply into this. He's had an affiliation with HeartMath for probably 15 years now. And so that's spawned the idea of brain coherence and heart coherence, and the idea that if we want our brain to really function like we want it as a leader, as a parent, as a human, the heart's coherence is a huge booster because the heart's so powerful. It sets the tone in the body. So if you got the right tone kind of going in your heart, it's going to make it easier for the brain to do its job. Now, that's a nice concept we're able to prove out through many, many studies over the years that indeed, if your heart is more coherent, the brain kind of entrains to that. It says, oh, thank you, heart. You're making it easier for me to be really sharp and do what I'm supposed to do.
I really loved about your presentation is we were surrounded people in the room. You ask a volunteer, and you hooked him up to this heart math device, and you could
Right.
record the heart frequency. And
Yes.
as he stepped up, you could see he was a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
So his graph was a little bit more chaotic. And then you prompted him and say, okay, I'm not going to ask you to sing, but if I ask you to sing, what would you sing in front of 300 people? And so you could see how this person was so overwhelmed and stressed, and the heart showed it.
Yes,
And
exactly.
you keep priming the pump and say, okay, if he's going to sing, what would you like to hear? And
Yes.
so for like a minute, his heart was like going crazy. The power of this was you said, okay, I'm not going to ask you to sing. So he released and he was relieved. And then you asked everybody in the room, 300 people, to calm down, to take a deep breath, close your eyes, and do kind of being in silence and focus on the breath and focusing on a happy moment in life. And his heart frequency started to, as you said, smoothen out. It became coherent.
Exactly.
Interestingly, when you looked at the guy from the outside, you couldn't see it physically outside, but his heart was responding so heavily to just the thoughts you created in his mind.
Yeah, yeah, it's a powerful demonstration, I think, to just help folks get this visual. So, as you said, and I may sound like I'm a bit of a sadist, forcing this guy. Number one, he did volunteer, so I never just pulled somebody up from the audience. So this was an extrovert that said, "I want to come up and be in front of 200 people." So I thought, okay, I got a little bit of
He
leeway
got
here.
the recognition too.
That's exactly, exactly. But once he got up there, as you said, I kind of kept teasing like I was really going to make him sing. Now the audience was kind of in on the joke that I think Bruce is kidding, but everybody wasn't sure. But what you saw happen, because he was now wired up, was just the thought of being potentially embarrassed was causing his heart rate to spike and to get more chaotic. So as soon as that would happen, then the audience spotted that and the audience would laugh. Now that made him even more embarrassed. So there's this kind of escalating thing. And then finally I said, don't worry, I'm not gonna make you sing. It's really okay. And then what was fun, as you just pointed out, when I just asked him to focus on some lovely feeling in his life, his child, his pet, his mother, his garden, nature, God, didn't really matter, but something that he genuinely felt grateful for. We all watched the same 200 people that just watched his heart totally chaotic and obviously chaotic. Now suddenly it has this smooth, very obvious rhythm called a sine wave, a coherent wave. And like the audience is all like, that's the same guy. This is real time. Bruce isn't making this up. So it's a powerful demonstration because we have the power by changing our thoughts, changing our emotions, especially to dramatically shift what's happening in our heart, which has a global impact on our entire body,
So the
especially up.
connection between the heart and the brain and what we think is tremendous, powerful.
Exactly.
How can we apply that day in, day out?
Well, at the risk of sounding trite, a lot of it is about appreciation and gratitude. What we learned back in those days in the early 90s was that anytime any human, part of the reason I could do a demonstration like that with a volunteer that I'd never met in front of hundreds of people is we had already tested thousands of people, and we know what to expect. If you can coach somebody into a positive emotional state and get their breathing slowed down a little bit, the pattern of their heart will change. I've done this thousands of times and it works. So the point is, it really takes both the slowing of the breath, but especially an ability to say, hey, wait a minute, I can be caught up in the stress right now. That's going to compromise my thinking process, most likely. I'm liable to make a short sighted decision because I'm just reacting right now. I'm liable to say something that's not the best thing to say because I'm a little bit too reactive right now. Or I can say, let's slow down, let's take control, let's focus on something to shift my mood that
Mhm.
I love in my life, my daughter, my anything. So that's the practice. It's to slow ourselves down. But you can do this in a meeting. You could be sitting there wishing the meeting it would end and pouring lots of stress chemicals through your body because it's not going to end yet. Or you can sit there and say, well, what can I appreciate? This is a terrible meeting, but I don't need to ruin my body in the process. I can be at least neutral and daydream about something I love. So I think the practice of both remembering that the slowing our breath is taking control. So we're not the one reacting and therefore not using all of our capacities. Instead, we're taking control, but we're also saying, I'm gonna consciously make an effort to shift my mood out of I'm the victim of this terrible meeting into, well, what can I enjoy? That's a big
Now,
mindset
we
shift.
all get into situations where we feel stressed or uncomfortable, where our heart reacts. It's a natural survival mechanism. What can we do to build that resilience where the heart almost becomes stronger at not reacting? Is there a way to create some resilience around that?
That's a great question. Well, I think so you mentioned singing and dancing, and so I have trained as a classically trained singer, as a contemporary dancer, as an actor. I didn't get good at any of those things to this place where I could perform hundreds of times in New York City on major shows without a lot of practice.
Yep.
I had to practice the old 10,000 hours to master anything. And so it does take practice. So when I was first learning this, when we were developing these ideas in the early 90s, I had one of those watches that would go off on the hour. It was a Casio. And this is like that was so high tech. Your watch will beep. Oh my God. You can set it to go off at a certain time. Oh my God, that's amazing. And that's the phase of life we were in, right? And so I would take advantage of that function for it to beep every hour when I wanted it to. And on the hour, I would practice bringing my attention to the area of my heart and breathing slowly and appreciating at that time, it was my daughter who was probably about 4 or 5 years old. And when I would focus on her, like I always melted into this feeling of love. I would practice that on the hour. I could be in a meeting, I could be working on a project, it didn't matter. I would make it. Now, if I was literally talking and doing a presentation, I wasn't going to have the entire room of 200 people, although that probably would have been a good idea. So my point is that it took practice because just like anything, the practice for me as a singer, as a dancer, meant I was developing the circuitry to be able to do it consistently at a high level. I couldn't sing at a high level consistently when I started. I couldn't dance at a high level consistently when I started. I had to practice, so I got better and better and built the circuitry to know how to tap into that state. So that's what we're doing. When I would practice on the hour, just breathe through my heart for a minute or so and slow breaths, but focusing specifically on the feelings of appreciation and gratitude, I was starting to not only that feels good, number one, like why wouldn't you do that? Oh wow, what have I been missing? I could have been doing this my whole life. But it also starts to feel natural after a while. And you start to and then I realized after time, when I would just be kind of reflecting on something, I would naturally kind of go focus on my heart without even thinking about it and just kind of calm down, find that pleasant feeling that I had trained myself how to feel. So the training is important, but think of it as anything else you got good at. You didn't tell yourself, I'm practicing riding a bicycle when you were 6, but you were. You practiced enough and you did it enough times, you got good. And you might get off a bike for 30 years, you get that gone, you're a little rusty, but you can do it again. Those circuits never completely went away. So that's the essence.
You have worked with a lot of leaders from different backgrounds and performers. What happens when the heart is not coherent, when the heart starts to go in a chaotic frequency? And what's the cost to the person and the people around them?
Well, boy, that's a big question. Of course, there's a spectrum of costs. So, but I think the simple thing first internally, if we think of the heart as a very powerful drum beat, I mean, name another organ that you can feel a pulse. There isn't one. So the fact that it's pulsing and every cell in your body is getting that pulse, kaboom, kaboom, every cell in your body. You can put an electrode on your big toe and it can register the heartbeat, no problem. So there's a drum beat that's spreading to every single cell in our body. There's also an electrical and magnetic signal that's going out, not just a feeling. It's like an actual signal. So I lost my train of thought a little bit on your question again here, but the training process is,
What happens when the signal is chaotic?
yeah, thank you. Yeah, so when it's chaotic, there's the rhythm that's chaotic now, like a chaotic drum beat going through you. There's an electrical signal that's kind of fritzing going through you. The guy up on the stage that in your example, The rhythm of his heart is chaotic. It's not beating in a smooth rhythm. And all of those signals are being transmitted to every cell in the body. And on top of that, that's usually happening because we're feeling some kind of stressful feeling. We're feeling anxious. We're feeling overwhelmed. We're feeling furious. And research 30 plus years ago had uncovered the idea that anytime we are triggered, stressfully triggered in a day, an alert on your phone, just the name of somebody showing up in your inbox, knowing you have to open the email, as chain reaction of about 1,400 biochemical events start happening in your body to prepare you for the threat.
So let's repeat that. 1,400 biochemical processes.
1,400 biochemical changes. The reason for this is in the survival days when we literally had to worry about surviving lunch because another tribe could attack us or an animal could attack us, we needed around 1,400 biochemicals to give us the energy to fight the threat or to flee from threat. And therefore, the response called fight flight. Now they realize it's a little more sophisticated than that, but the essence is that. So our body is ready to gear up in a nanosecond to deal with that alert that just popped up on your phone, that text message from who, that happening. So that's
What
all
does
that's tied into what's going on in your heart.
what does that do to the brain and the mental functioning? And then I want to leap towards creativity and vision and imagination. So let's go with, you said the heart has a magnetic frequency.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the impact on the brain when the heart goes chaotic?
Well, think of it in a simple term of if you were listening to a radio back in the days when we listened to radios, you could listen to a station that was full of static. So you were having a hard time hearing the song or hearing the person that was talking. And that's confusing, it's disorienting, and it's annoying. You could also find a station that was super clear and playing this glorious symphony or this beautiful song. And now you're feeling, there we go. So we all would know kind of from our own experience. Similarly, you could be standing in New York City on any day and think, whoa, the intensity was coming at me. You could also drive an hour away and be on a beach with nobody else there. And suddenly it's like, there we go. So which do you want all the noise being generated? And the heart's not the fault. It's not like, oh, damn our hearts. Why our heart's doing this to us? It's really our out of control emotions that are doing it. But the heart's an amplifier. The heart's part of that system. So it's amplifying what we're feeling. So unless we can regulate what we're feeling and move out of the constant stress or frustration or worry, which does take some training and some practice, and move into appreciating more and having more gratitude, then the internal environment going on radically changes, right? So you're either feeding your whole body and brain all this static, all this noise, and the biochemistry of fight or flight,
Mhm.
which would be appropriate if right now the room was burning, but it's
Right.
not. So I don't care who is going to text me. I don't need that response.
How have you applied this concept in your own life and for creativity, for your own personal fulfillment? Or do you also have an example how you applied this in an organization where you help people kind of to understand this dynamic and enhance their performance?
On a personal level, a lot of it has come down to the idea that I want to be more grateful and loving person. As a father, I want to listen better. As a partner, as a lover, I want to be more responsive. I want to be more receptive. I want to be in a mode that people want to be around me, not like, oh, I'm demanding attention or trying to rule others. So a lot of that has just been every moment I need to remember it. Like if I'm feeling a little tense about something, if I'm feeling a little bit anxious about a conversation I had with someone, that's the moment to bring my attention to my heart and take some slow, not overly slow, but just breathe in for about 5 seconds, like you were breathing through your heart, and then just breathe out for about 5 seconds. And just that process, especially when you combine that with my daughter, or I was house sitting recently for a gorgeous little cat named Lucy. Oh, Lucy, it doesn't matter. Your grandma. Focus on something that you genuinely love or are grateful for. It could have been the concert last Friday night that was like awesome, epic, and you want to relive that. So that's what we're doing. So that's how I apply it, is finding simple ways. I put myself in nature a lot. I go on hikes a lot. I take my camera being my iPhone, and I photograph spectacular nature, partly because I want to experience it. I want to go places where it's spectacular to feel that, but I also want to capture it, to remember it, and I want to share it with others because they're not getting outside enough. Probably most people aren't. So part of it is to just remember to do this idea of, I want to be a good person. I want to be a loving person. I want to be a kind person. And that is actually strength that I'm building, not weakness. So
Mhm.
that's a little snapshot. There's much more I could say about how I apply it personally. Now, when it comes to groups, there's this whole model that we developed years ago called inner quality management, IQM for short. And there were several principles when you work in an organization. One is making sure I personally am more self-managed. And now the term self-regulation or emotional regulation has become very popular because of our nervous systems that dysregulate a lot because life is getting crazier and crazier and crazier. Our nervous systems, as a result, are kind of fritzing a lot. So we get overwhelmed, we get more tired, we get more fatigued, more exhausted. So these principles apply. So in the context of an organization, I want individuals to have an understanding of how to manage themselves because they are humans, they are fathers, they are brothers, they are sisters, they are mothers, they are whoever they are. They've got a life beyond the work, but they're also working in the context of other people, whether they work remotely or work directly. And so we were able to adapt these principles of coherence to how we communicate. So exercises of making sure, for example, let's say you and I were team members. I would make sure, if you were speaking up in a meeting, I would make sure I heard you appropriately, especially if you were a quieter member of a team. So one of the things I learned in working with tons and tons of teams around the world was the quieter ones are quiet partly because they often have felt unheard. So they don't like the why bother? They're not going to hear me anyway. So as a leader, I said, I have got to make sure, especially the quiet ones, are feeling heard by me. If they feel heard by me, that's going to open the floodgates of them sharing more. Because oftentimes the most creative people in many teams are the quietest ones because for whatever reason, they may not be as extroverted, they may not be as talkative, and they've probably been shut down enough times. So they go, why bother? They're not going to listen to me anyway. Well, that kills the team. That kills creativity. So being able to make sure another person is heard is a big part of how that impacts teams. And then in our model, this affects the culture. So it's not just about me or me and my team, but it's also our division or like what's the culture? Is the vibe in the place genuinely supportive, genuinely respectful, genuinely a place that people would want to come and work? Or is it all about command and control? And well, you can't do the job, find another job. You don't like it around here? Well, this is the rules of the game around here. We don't actually care about your feedback because we're going to do it the way we want to do it anyway. Yeah, so addressing those kinds of things. So there's kind of a whole model of how we began to work and applying the idea of coherence, going from the chaotic noise, internal dialogue to a much smoother. And coherent does not mean passive. This is something I think it's been important over the years because sometimes people will say, "Well, you're breathing slowly. It sounds like I'm going to get super relaxed." The surgeons would tell us, and we'd work with hospitals, I don't want to be relaxed. I've got to be super alert. And we would say, coherence is not relaxation. Relaxation is slowing the heart rate way down. And that's like really getting like relaxing, like a nap or a sleep or something. Coherence means you can be an EMT, a first responder, and go into an incredibly dangerous or chaotic situation and still function at a high level because you are the eye of the hurricane. You are the calm in the storm. I was in a situation once a number of years ago where sitting outside in a cafe enjoying a summer afternoon here in California, suddenly a car comes up over the curb. The driver's side door pops open and this lady staggers out of the car screaming she thinks she's having a heart attack. My friend and I were the closest ones to this lady. She survived. The whole thing was ended up fine. But the point of the story was, luckily, we were 200 yards from the fire station and therefore the responders. We dialed 911 right away while we tried to help her calm down. But the big burly first responder guy who came in was just a picture of calm. It's kind of like Another day at the job. I know exactly what to do. Ma'am, we're going to take good care of you. He was not chaotic like she was. He was not
Right.
trying to convince her, oh, just calm the frick down. No, he was just like calm. He walked in calm, absolutely in charge, not relaxed, but focused. So coherence is this, it's not tense, it's not that kind of energy, but it's focused. And so we had a lot of surgeons realizing, oh, I get it. Focus is different than relax.
Yeah.
Relax is not bad, but do relax when your lives are not at stake.
You have a creative background, dancing, singing, and you also work with people to kind of spark that inner joy, that creativity. How do you do that?
Well, I had some wild experience in my life, and I had cancer. I had staph infections that resulted from the treatments for the cancer. Fast forward to today, I'm now coming up on 16 years cancer free, 15
Congratulations.
just past 15 years staph infection free, 14 years on new titanium hips. So I went through a lot of stuff. And in the aftermath of that, this urge to create sprang up again. I hadn't really sung in many years. I hadn't sung publicly in many years, even though I'd been on stage on Broadway. I hadn't danced at all because my hips were not good. But now all that was taken care of little by little. Like my body was saying, no, no, it's time to sing again, dude. It's time to dance again. Let's go for it. And so this creative urge was reawakened. And people would tell me, you're like a Renaissance man. You're singing again. We didn't even know you could sing. You're dancing again. And you had a couple of life-threatening conditions that you survived. So that was not lost on me. And I found this creative urge awakening. And I also stepped down as CEO of HeartMath at the time because I felt like something is needing to change. And I'm not exactly sure what it is yet. I didn't know how much I wanted to sing and dance. But once I started, it was like, dude, you're not putting that genie back in the bottle. This is a big part of who you are. And it hasn't been lately. You need to kind of get back into that. So I embraced the idea that I and all humans are fully creative beings. I don't consider myself more creative, even though I have a couple of things that I do that are public creativity. Being a dancer, being a singer, being an actor, that's not, oh, wow, you're a creative person. I'm saying, show me a single mom with 3 kids who's making it work.
That's creativity.
She
Eh?
may not sing, she may not dance, she may not write poetry, but she's making a symphony of her life. That's just as creative, if not more so. It's one thing when your creativity gets applause. It's another thing when your creativity gets no applause, except the satisfaction that I'm taking care of my kids. So my point is that we're all creative. Every human being, we're born to create life. Whether we create another life isn't even the point. That urge to create is why we want to try a new job, try a new career, sing when we haven't sung in 25 years, dance when we haven't danced. Take a painting class. I used to think I liked painting. Maybe I will again. So I started to create a course thanks to Stanford.
I started painting about 5 years ago, just because I
Really?
ran into a painting studio and I started painting and I surprised myself at how creative I am because I haven't painted since I 18 years old. So yeah, to your point, we all are creative and
Great
we all have
example.
that creative juices and spirit in us. But
And I think there's a
sometimes
natural decline that happens because as kids, it's so much easier to embrace all that because what are your responsibilities? To go to school, more or less do what your parents want you to do and the teachers. But there's a lot of freedom to just play on the playground, to
yeah,
pick up something and make a painting in the sand. I mean, there's a freedom and an energy that comes with that we gradually think, I don't have time for that anymore. I can't. I now have responsibility. Now I'm a parent. Now I got a mortgage.
how do we infuse that creative side in a work environment? How do we get people inspired to be creative and also that intuitive side because that's part of the creativity. How do we foster that in a workplace where we got to deliver and produce?
Yeah, this is gonna sound maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but in my opinion, the best energy to enhance creativity in a workplace is the energy of playfulness.
Mm.
Playfulness. And I mean, I think for the last 20, 30 years, you often would hear about these really innovative companies where Patagonia for years, they were kind of a star. There are lots of examples, but the workplace was different. It was more playful. Dogs were there, whatever. There wasn't the old totally controlled. You got to be nose to the grindstone the entire time. Of course, now, unless you're on Facebook or wherever or you're doing AI on your phones. But I think allowing and encouraging a playful attitude in the workplace, even though that could sound like, well, how are you going to get a job done if you're being all playful? Well, the other day I had a significant issue I had to call customer service about, and the lady happened to be in South Africa. That's where the call went. I recognized the South African accent. We had a conversation around South Africa, and it was because Nelson Mandela and I shared the same birthday, and it
Wow.
was the day after my birthday, his birthday, my birthday. I happened to recognize the accent. My point being, I was trying to be playful with this person, even though I was the one with the problem. I had done something wrong, and now I had to deal with the consequences. But I thought, I'm going to just connect to this person as a person. And when I recognized the accent, I thought, interesting. She's in South Africa. She probably knows that was his birthday. And sure enough, the whole country celebrates his birthday the day before. So my point being, and she later on, she said, "You made my day. Thank you. Thank you for this call." Just bringing up, just even noticing an accent and recognizing it was South African. She felt like, wow, you knew that? I said, yeah, I've been there a bunch of times. I love your country. I wish I could go back soon. So my point being flexible, being spontaneous, allowing yourself to create a moment. She will probably talk about that. She probably won't forget that. Hopefully she has many more great moments, but I wanted to kind of create a moment. Just my heart said, create a moment. She's in South Africa. I love South Africa. I have this unique connection to it thanks to the modern day founder of it. And so, but that takes a playful energy to do that. When I was CEO of HeartMath, I would sometimes not tell inappropriate jokes, but but make comments that were like, "You really just said that." Not that they were off color, but they were like lighthearted because I'd say we have to be we are all of these parts of ourselves. We are not just the part that is mentally focused on tasks. That is one frequency that we are capable of and may be needed. But trust me, if that's all you do, you are a narrow human, and you're probably going to contribute in a very narrow way to an organization.
And you use the word lighthearted,
Exactly.
which has to do with coherence. And if we are heavy hearted, it creates a different energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's not meaning you suddenly we're all taking out crayons and colored markers all the time and just being 5-year-olds. That's not what I mean by playful. But the energy when friends are together having a good time, that energy of having fun together and recognizing a lot of times because of what you just said, the heavy heart, the heavy heartedness, that creates a block on the creativity.
Yeah.
I call playfulness the wonder drug of creativity. I love watching men, especially adult men, in the presence of young children who are being completely playful and are making up stories left and right about these imaginary characters they're all playing with. And then the adult has to kind of join in the language but they will do it and but deny that no, I shouldn't be that way. But then they'll get down there and start talking in a funny voice. I say, it's in you, dude. It is in you. Don't keep rejecting it. That energy. I'm not saying you got to walk around in funny voices all the time, but I'm saying that energy of being able to be playful when the moment needs it, to lighten the air, to create the sparkle that I know what we should do now because you have lightened the environment.
Now, you have so much tremendous knowledge and experience, expertise around those topics. What are a couple of simple practices that you advise the listeners to apply today, tomorrow, next week to really kind of be more lighthearted, more creative, more inspired, and create that culture and environment around us?
Well, lighthearted and inspired, more creative. To me, many of us, huge, huge percentage, I have no idea what the numbers are, it doesn't matter. A huge number of us are way too sedentary. We're sitting at our desks in front of our computers or our devices way too much. And I point out we're kind of in this shape,
Yeah.
meaning shape. That's not the shape of flow. That's the shape of angles and restriction. And then we wonder why we have a hard time coming up with creative ideas. And sometimes I'll say to myself, dude, get out of your freaking chair, walk outside, get some fresh air, look at the sunshine, look at a flower, look at a tree, just get yourself into another environment, but move, specifically move. We are designed to move.
Yeah.
We are the first generation that thinks we're supposed to be sitting most of the time in front of devices that are not organic. Like,
Yeah.
this is supposed to be normal. Well, it never was for tens of thousands of years. So it's not really normal. It's not really healthy. So getting up and moving is very simple. But we have to remind ourselves, kind of like the watch that goes off on the hour. You may need to do that. Set a reminder on your computer to get up and stretch, get up and turn on a piece of music that you love. But we're not moving enough. And so the energy in us tends to kind of pool up and get stuck. And it often is very mental, because if we're just sitting and we're just focused on information coming in back and forth, we're very much up here. We're not in the more spacious, what do we do? Like, why do companies take their people teams on retreats? Why do they take them out to the country? They think they will think better. Why is that? Well, they're not in their normal routine. Number one. Number two, they're out in nature. Number three, they're having a good time because it's not the usual rules and routines of the workplace. Well, why wouldn't that be like the way we should be working on a regular basis? Getting outside, having a little more informality, a little more casual attitudes, a little more playfulness. The same reason we go on retreats. We should be doing that. So take yourself on retreat.
Yep. Yes, standing meetings outside, and I do a lot of podcast listening when I go and take a walk and get
Yeah.
inspired. So, yep,
Yeah.
be creative in terms of movement and integrate some of the learning and work into moving exercises. Yeah.
Yeah, and like all that we said at the beginning of this conversation around heart coherence, when we are locked in our heads, locked onto devices, are there any warm feelings going on in us at those times? But are you? Do you have people that you love in your life? Uh-huh. So then, but you haven't thought about them in days. So then why are you doing all this? Have you thought about the plants in your garden that you love to see when you go home at night? No, you haven't thought about it. You wait till you get home. But why don't you bring it into the day? Because it's now in the day when we actually need that energy, especially not just later once it's over. Like bringing the feelings of a vacation into our day, not just waiting until the 2 weeks at the end of the year.
What's your vision for the next few years? What are you excited about where you want to focus your energy towards?
Well, I've developed this new system. It's really a kind of next generation of in my own evolution from the heart math and the creativity. I call it vibrato. And it came to me as I was literally walking on the beach, having evacuated from a Category 5 hurricane that was coming to Florida where I was living. And I was at that moment dealing with kidney stones and a UTI, urinary tract infection. So I was in a lot of pain. I had evacuated my home because of the hurricane, Category 5, huge, and feeling some despair. And I felt like when I tune into the world, all of whom were not going through a hurricane, but they were going through their own things.
Mhm.
They were not all going through kidney stones, but they were going through their own things. I'm thinking the world needs more ways to let go of what's building up in us. We're in a time where I don't care your political views. I don't care where you are in the world. There is more pressure on us than ever, more reasons to feel angry or feel isolated or whatever. And so to me, we have to let go more often. We have to, and there's something designed into our body called a sigh of relief. I've renamed it. I've created a technique I call the wave of relief. And the idea is that through a day, our body wants us to release. And that's why we have the instinct to go, oh, that job's done. Oh, great. Now I can relax. No, you should have relaxed a while ago, but yes, now you can relax. So I'm on this mission to say we are all at levels of overwhelm that's really not sustainable. And we know that, but we don't really know what to do. Or we kind of do, but how do we sustain what we know to do? Because there's so many pressures and so much just noise in the environment. So this concept of vibrato is to basically add positive waves to life instead of just feeling bad when the wave hits us of, oh, I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe that was just announced. Like, oh no, not another one. Those waves that are hitting us and we are recoiling and getting exhausted. My intuition, my heart told me we got to start generating more waves. We got to start counteracting some of that. We're not going to be able to change the people making many of these decisions that are horrible to us. But what we can change is what's happening inside us. And that does have to do with, are we going to be taken under by the wave hitting us, or are we going to start generating more waves of positivity and more care to others and more care to ourselves? Put ourselves out in the garden, put ourselves out on the beach, put ourselves out in the sunshine to create new waves instead of the waves just kind of folding in on us and feeling heavier and heavier and more tired. So I'm passionate about that because I think just like human progress is possible even at a time of a lot of darkness. And I think we know a lot more about what the body's capable of. Compared to when we were starting 35 years ago, I mean, it's like a completely new world of understanding what's possible. And along with that, a lot of people, a lot more hopeful, but then there's billions more that are still feeling stuck and feeling unempowered and everything else. So I do believe that part of what I'm saying is part of an answer, that we have to learn how to let go of things. It's too easy to hang on to the hurt, the anger, the frustration, the feeling of suffering. Understandably so, especially if something bad has occurred that people were hurt. But the more we hang on to it, the more it's depleting us without our really awareness that's happening. And so, and to our detriment, of course, in terms of our health, in terms of our attitude to life. How many times do people say, "Oh, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop," like like they're feeling all the negativity, and then they knew another one would happen, and sure enough, it did. And there we go.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
definitely. There's a lot of demands, pressure, stress that
exactly,
from the outside, and I think over the part of me being a coach and a trainer and learner is taking the opportunity to heal the heart, because the heart is a powerful organ, but it's also the emotions and the everything around the heart. And I think using
exactly,
healing as an opportunity to, like a pressure valve, we don't have to add more pressure.
yes,
We are able to release the
exactly.
pressure and we kind of transfer that energy into some good, loving, caring energy. Yeah. How do you do that? Give me a brief overview of this vibrato
The-
concept.
So the kind of cornerstone technique I call the wave of relief, and it's based on this idea that when we're really, thank God I don't have to deal with that, or oh wow, our team won. When I was in my cancer period, the surgery had happened. A month later, there's an important test to make sure nothing that was coming back. And I felt really good. I felt like, wow, my doctor did what we hoped. He got the tumor. I think I really felt like I was good. I was waiting to get the call from the doctor about the test results. And I'm feeling positive. And I finally get the call, and he right away gets on and says, "Bruce, good news for you. The test came back negative." Well, I had been feeling I was really positive. And then what happened was, oh, thank God. I mean, there's this huge release, way bigger than I would have thought. I thought I kind of I got this. We're good. But then my body told a whole nother story. No, dude, you were carrying a lot of energy in there, as you would. I mean, you're human. No guilt. You're a normal human. Of course you would, but acknowledge that so that you can deal with it. So this sigh of relief, which is what my whole body did, is a mechanism built into our how we are built as humans, which is why every athlete who did just about any sport at some point goes, they do that in the batter's box, in golfing, in tennis, in gymnastics, in swimming, you name it. At some point, they know I've got to let go in order to. So the wave of relief was based around nature, and I'm basically saying, imagine you're standing at the beach and it's a gorgeous summer day and warm breeze and the water's great, and you're breathing in that energy, a nice deep breath, like bigger than a normal inhale, and then you're letting go, like let go, like I felt when the news was the test is negative, dude. Just letting go, but you're letting go to the sea because again, you're imagining it's like you're with the waves. So the waves are bringing in you all the good, bringing to you all the great energy. And then as you release, remember the waves go out just as much as they come in. They go out just as much as they come in, or we would all be underwater. I love to say that. So we're helping people remember, just as energy can come into us that feels great, just also the sea takes stuff away from us.
Yeah.
So you can use this imagery as a way to release what's otherwise holding on in your belly. A lot of us feel tension, anxiety in the belly. Maybe it's in the shoulders, maybe in the chest, wherever it is, wherever we're holding on. That simple process, breathe in like you're standing at the warm sea, and then just letting it go like a true sigh of relief. Ah, and you do
Great.
that several times. When you first try it, you realize I'm still holding on. It might take 8 or 10. And you
Yeah.
see, guys, I'm still holding on. Damn, that thing wants to hold on like crazy. I said, yeah, you've been doing it a long time. Cut yourself some slack. It's okay. We all do it. We can all wink at each other. We all do this. It's no big deal.
I love all your ideas and tools and stories. How can we learn more about your expertise and your vibrato concept?
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I use my name. I don't have anything other than my name, Bruce Cryer. And so that's my name on LinkedIn, on my website, brucecryer.com, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, Bruce Cryer. So I'm in a lot of places. And on LinkedIn, for those of your listeners who are on LinkedIn, I have a newsletter on LinkedIn called Future You, where I talk about these ideas in more depth. Several thousand people subscribe to that. And I get on podcasts, like seeing my old friends every so often, like you today, Simon. So I have podcasts, a lot of links to podcasts on my brucecryer.com site. And I have a new thing, a store called stand.store/Bruce Cryer. And it's a very cool new store concept, stand.store/Bruce Cryer. And it kind of gives lots of free things, links, as well as digital things that you can just order, or it's like it's got a calendar function too. So people could like literally schedule an appointment with me all through this stand.store/Bruce Cryer. So look me up,
Awesome.
find me.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful for our chat today. I'm gonna get up, get outside. I'm gonna move, do some breathing,
Excellent.
and I'm gonna incorporate that. So much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening. I am Simon Vetter, and you have been listening to The Vision Architect. If this episode sparked new ideas, share it with someone you care. Until next time, keep imagining the future you want to create and start building it.